The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
Hello there.
Josh Shigala from the Standard.io.
Evening or morning, wherever you are.
Ben Ark from LN Bits.
Hello.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, SEC delays. Once again, the SEC has delayed their decision for the spot Bitcoin ETFs, including BlackRock, Invesco, and even Valkyrie were hit by delays by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Dan, I know we talk about ETFs all the time on this show, but we just can't stop. It doesn't seem like we're getting an ETF anytime soon, does it?
No, but there has been some progress, right? With Gensler reiterating that Bitcoin isn't a security, and that's, I think, is more positive than the ETF news, right? Because obviously there's lots of people that say that the ETF is going to be a big up or a big down for Bitcoin, depending on which way you look at it. I mean, in 2017, there was obviously a big dump after the ETF, the futures ETF got approved. But with actually, I think with Gensler saying that Bitcoin isn't a security and firming that, right, that's going to open up the doors to a lot more opportunities than I think the ETF in the meantime. There's obviously a lot of speculation, right, as to whether BlackRock's going to get there first, or the grayscale. There's the shutdown of the government, so there's people saying that technically, due to if the government did shut down, the US government did shut down by default, because one of the decisions was due or is going to be due at that point, that it would be allowed by default. So there's people saying yay and nay, but ultimately, the Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and if Gensler is saying it's not a security, I think that's more positive than just getting a decision on the ETF in the short term.
Josh Shigala, why can't we have a spot ETF? Why can't Bitcoin have nice things?
Well, it's one of these things that just keep on going on. And Bitcoin has this tradition of 2 weeks TM. And this all started with Butterfly Labs. I'm sorry to bring this up, Dan, but Butterfly Labs, it was always 2 weeks TM. It's like, when's this thing going to be ready? 2 weeks. And eventually everything started being 2 weeks. And so I guess this NFT is 2 weeks away. That's all I got to say about it.
It's an ETF, but he's got NFTs on the mind. Yeah. Ben Ark, why can't we have an ETF? Why can't Bitcoin have nice things?
Because the SEC, I mean, they have to, like, the whole reason we're excited about an ETF and we want an ETF is because all these big institutional investors, like the retirement funds and these big institutional investors who can't get exposure to Bitcoin because they don't want to buy Bitcoin and hold it themselves, it would give them exposure and they can have it in their portfolio, which would be very, very good for the price. That's the reason we want an ETF. But the SEC, they need to, the reason those big institutions can invest in an ETF, can invest in Bitcoin via an ETF, is because it's a safer way for them to engage with Bitcoin and get some Bitcoin exposure. The SEC just needs to make sure that that's done in a safe way. The reason they'll do it through an ETF is because it's safer. So the SEC needs to be sure that it's safer, and that currently, I suppose, the SEC, for whatever reason, are dragging their feet, probably because they don't like Bitcoin, but also because, like, it is a hard thing to have if you've got like a bear asset like gold or something to create a spot ETF. So that's why it's taking a long time. But eventually, when we do get that, it'll be great for the price, and the price will go up.
I wonder if, like, I could imagine if they actually eventually allow the ETF, and then a few months later it gets hacked, or the people holding the keys had too much security and can't now figure out how to unencrypt, or too little security and they get hacked, and then the entirety of Wall Street sue Gary Gensler for like losing their money. It could swallow, like you said, Ben, it could swallow up a massive amount of Wall Street cash.
Yeah, they
And
all want
if
to get
it's
exposure
lost,
to it. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
It's got to be safe, man. Like the SEC, I mean, they're kind of doing their job, really. Like they've got to make sure that security protocol is as good as it gets. And maybe with Bitcoin, maybe there isn't a protocol which the ETF could do to really, make the SEC happy. Maybe we'll never get it.
it's a fine line, isn't it? Because you're right, like even for personal storage, it depends how you can go really secure. You go too little, and then you go too much, where you just can never piece the stuff together again. And yeah, it's that fine line right in between, that gap, that nice gap, and that gap's different for everybody. It is a very hard problem, and we've talked about this on the show before as well, about governments having this problem. This one, when me personally am not a big fan of governments holding Bitcoin, because it's just so hard to secure, basically, for a government. If the government goes out of power and you get some psycho that just takes the money, so it takes the private key, goes, look, holds the whole country to ransom, then you've got a dictator on your hands. And
then we finally get to find out how many Bitcoin can fit in a briefcase in El Salvador. Oh, spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Oh no, Josh, my favorite thing about the Bitcoin ETF is that the very next day they approve the Ethereum ETF, and then everyone gets really mad, and then they approve the Litecoin ETF and the Ripple and who knows what else. And again, Bitcoin carries it through the land, and it doesn't matter in the end, as they just give it over to the others.
That's a very good point. So it's like if you approve a Bitcoin ETF, then you have all these shitcoins coming, and they want their ETFs as well. And then you have to then approve them, and then you also have like just the the general scamminess, and maybe not Ethereum, but some other coins which obviously they have that extra danger of just being scammy pump and dumps and not decentralized. So it's allowing a Bitcoin ETF could kind of open the floodgates to.
Well, and what's to say that Dogecoin doesn't deserve an ETF? Dogecoin is certainly just as good as Bitcoin, right?
Well, didn't Valkyrie recently get a futures ETF approved? Right, that was in the last couple of days.
I don't think it was for Dogecoin though.
No, not Dogecoin. It's Ethereum. It's Ethereum, right? Ethereum futures for his existing Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah, there's been lots of futures.
Down.
Futures things have been approved, but not a spot ETF yet. We're still waiting for the spots.
It's like it's like trying to hold on to a slippery bar of soap. Like, so these institutions, they don't want to hold on to that slippery bar of soap because they'll drop it and they'll mess it up. So they want an ETF to hold on to that bar of soap for them. But then the SEC needs to make sure that the ETF, they have like strong enough hands to hold on to that slippery bar of soap.
With a chastity.
Yeah, for those that don't know, banks get hacked all the time. The time. Yeah. It's just you'll never hear about it because they cover it up. They don't want people to think they're insecure. But imagine if it was Bitcoin, right? A bank can just claw it back by basically reissuing and then following the serial numbers, because all fiat is pretty non-fungible actually, because of the serialization. And if it was Bitcoin, they're screwed. They lost the money. So yeah.
But one thing I was thinking is that with banks and any other like PayPal, any other software company where they're deciding on software decisions, it's always done behind closed doors, right? It's always done in a meeting room where they're making these decisions. They're having these arguments over which way to go. Whereas Bitcoin is open source, so you see those arguments air in public, and to the general public, they think that they can't decide on what to do because of this, that, and the other, and they think that there's some hoo-ha going on that's really a lot more blown out than it actually is. It's just some decision making that's reaching general consensus. But you don't see that process when it happens in Amazon or HSBC or any of these banks where they're deciding on the route to go and why they should implement software and why they shouldn't. You're seeing it open source, airing the laundry, and which is much more beneficial because there's more opinions that are giving their opinion about it. And it seems like it's messy, but it's not.
it's a free and open source sausage being made in public. Like you see all the crap going into it. You end up with a beautiful sausage, which tastes delicious, but you see all the brains and guts and stuff which go into the sausage.
The sausage
Well,
is
yeah, and you don't want unaired laundry. Like it starts getting all muffly and disgusting, the smell, you know.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, now that we've exhausted
many
the laundry
analogies,
and the
so
soap
many
analogies,
analogies.
yes, we need all of those.
Open sausages.
So, Dan, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
Hey.
Josh Shigala, higher or lower?
I'm looking at a definite high. The triangles and the squares and the circles, they're heading up.
Ben Ark, it's trending towards higher. Which way are you going to go?
Well, we had a 2 before a 9, and then we had an 8 before a 6. So we've got a 5 coming up, which means that it's definitely going to go up.
Oh, he's got all the magical numbers, but we've got the magic 8 ball. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Here we go.
Let's go. Let's do this.
Without a doubt, the
Oh.
price will be higher. The ball has spoken. Moving on to issue 2. The U.S. government shutdown could boost the Bitcoin price, crypto bulls say. Where's the coin heading to? Josh Shigala, it's kind of counterintuitive here, but if the United States House of Representatives, run by the Republicans, cannot come to an agreement to keep the government open, this disastrous event will shut down all the national parks, all kinds of services, which we'll end up paying for anyway. Like many other natural disasters, could actually be good for Bitcoin. Josh, what do you think about that?
The US government is far too big. That's what I think about that. Like, why? What? You know, I mean, they've shut them down before. They've shut down the government before. But, you know, asking an anarcho-capitalist what he thinks of the government shutdown is I don't know. It happened before and nothing happened. It happened in Spain for like a year and nothing happened. It just, the country kept on going. So I don't think it'll matter. But for Bitcoin, it doesn't matter what happens to politics. It doesn't care what happens to politicians. In fact, politics wasn't even a big thing back in the day. Back in the olden days, politics was just a thing that you might get into if you're, in fact, that's why they didn't allow everyone to vote. They just said only a few people who are really interested in this thing can vote on stuff, because it didn't really make that much difference. Nowadays, it's just that people are obsessed with politics, but it doesn't actually affect that much stuff. It's just the real stuff that affects people is what happens in the private sector.
It could be, if the price of stocks go down, that the price of Bitcoin could go up as people are running away from stocks, looking for a safe place to put their investments. Ben Ark, what do you think? Is the government shutdown good for Bitcoin?
I think that any instability, people look for stable anchors, which they could like anchor their wealth to, whatever. And Bitcoin is that. But I mean, yeah, like Josh said, it's amazing how little impact you actually have in developed countries when you have a government shutdown. I mean, I remember once when I was working, and at one point I had 3 bosses, and there was this period where like one of them was off sick, and one of them went off on some sabbatical thing, and another one went off with some. Anyway, basically, we didn't have a boss. And the little department where I was teaching, we had like, you know, about 6 months without any bosses, and it was probably the happiest working environment I've ever had. And a government shutdowns are kind of the same. Like, stuff still gets done. You know, there's still departments who still do. They just don't have to worry about the big boss just, you know, trying to make themselves relevant by barking down them orders and micromanaging them. Anyway, I like the idea of a public agora when it comes to decision making. And I think that maybe people are trying to get that with some of the social media stuff and in the way they're becoming more politicized, but they're not quite sure how to best vent that energy. I mean, probably we need more direct forms of democracy, and you know, rather than voting every 4 years or whatever for a politician, we should be voting daily. And maybe people being able to they want to be engaged, and they want to have their say. And part of the frustration of not being able to do that in a daily way on topics which are relevant to them in the country where they live is not being up just watching some politician like dumbly making these stupid mistakes. Anyway, so yes, probably good for Bitcoin because people will see it as an unstable moment for society, but generally the rest of society will go and work better because no masters, we're all anarchists here, aren't we?
Well, we definitely don't save any money during a government shutdown. The vital services continued, and I don't know how, but somehow they pay them. They have a slush fund somewhere. Meanwhile, everyone else is furloughed, which means they don't have to go to work, but that the government generally owes them money anyway. So for most state and federal workers, they'll be paid back, but the state and federal won't get the work out of them. They'll get the money, but they won't get the work. It's also bad for contractors who may not be paid back after all, and could be a real disaster for their plans. It's bad for everybody, but it's always fun to just screw everything up just for fun. Dan, Eve, what do you think? How will the government shutdown in the United States potentially affect Bitcoin?
Yeah, I'm with the rest of the panel. I think it's much ado about nothing, right? You hear the all the wild things about what could happen when the government shut down, but things still tick on, the clock still ticks. There's obviously people that will take their furlough and not do the work. There's plenty of people that will carry on working and just be like, this is an ordinary day to me. I'm being paid for it, but I don't need to go into the office. Might log on and do some work from home. But it does seem like it's more of a dramatic thing about the whether it's Republicans in or the Democrats in, it's always a case of they're shutting down the government, right? It's always like, I remember it was when Obama was in 2012 or something like that, when when over New Year's Eve the government was going to be shut down. Everyone was like, everything's going to end. It's like the new millennium bug, but it still continued, right? Everyone's still marched.
Well, for the record, it has only been Republicans that have shut down the government, not Democrats. So.
Oh, no, I'm not saying the Democrats shut it down. I'm saying it was because of Republicans that it got shut down, right? They were the ones that it was when Obama was in, but it was the Republicans that didn't allow it to carry on. But regardless, it does happen, it does happen and things carry on. I think what's going to be good for Bitcoin is when they start handing out those welfare checks again, and everyone cashes them in, and we see that spike in Bitcoin payments, right? When they did the 2020 welfare payments with the COVID stuff, and Bitcoin started pumping because everyone was using their welfare money or their kind of not dole money, but their welfare checks to buy Bitcoin, and we saw a huge spike. But yeah, it's much ado about nothing. I think it's going to go up, it's going to go down. Whether it has an impact on Bitcoin's price, obviously on the mining side, mining's a lot more focused on or concentrated in the US now, but the mining is going to continue, so the government shutdown doesn't affect that.
I do think it's exciting when we're talking about Bitcoin and we're talking about Bitcoin and the stock market, or Bitcoin and the US government, because they're equal in size. So I think that's exciting to see that we've come to that point. Hey, check out worldcryptonetwork.com. We've got 3,148 videos, including a lot of new shorts that you can check out at worldcryptonetwork.com or on YouTube, worldcryptonetwork.com. Moving on to issue 3, Minecraft no longer has Bitcoin payments. Yes, there was a Satoshi server and they were giving out Satoshis to anyone who wanted to play Minecraft. But the fun is over. Microsoft, the new overlord of Minecraft, having replaced Notch and his company Mohang Games, is now the new boss, and the new boss says, no Bitcoin in Minecraft. Ben Ark, what do you think about the stunning reversal by Microsoft and the end of Bitcoin Minecraft?
Yeah, I mean, they were running a server where you could earn sats for playing Minecraft or whatever. I think the fear is when you have like game items which you can sell for real world money, or you have a way of earning real world money by playing a game, the fear is that you'll end up with sweatshops in some backward country where people are farming Bitcoin, which has happened in the past with a bunch of games, not for Bitcoin, but when you could easily sell things on like a free market of game items or whatever. That's the fear, and I can understand where that comes from. It's a shame that like they've just cut off that line of innovation, because obviously micropayments Well, computer games and digitally native currencies like Bitcoin should go hand in hand. And I think like much of the worries about any technology being used for wrongdoing, often it's like a very small percentile, and the rest of people are just using it for interesting, weird, and wonderful use cases. I saw that Zebedee were involved in helping build the architecture out which the server used. Zebedee are a great company, and they work on Bitcoin Lightning payments and bringing them into games. And they do a lot of outreach work as well. They go to a lot of gaming industry conferences, and they push Bitcoin to developers. And they've got a good kind of approach to it, that rather than trying to kind of like build a game around Bitcoin, like they're trying to sort of help implement Bitcoin into a lot of legacy games. The game I want to see with Bitcoin is Quake. There's a great Quake engine called Quake.js, and I actually started a project a while back called Quake LN, where you could pay to play, and then whoever wins just gets all the stats. And it was cool. Like that's the sort of stuff you want. And I guess with the problem is, like you say, like with Microsoft taking over from Mojang for Minecraft, which means the development. I mean, Minecraft in general, the permissionless development environment of Minecraft has just been getting worse over time, because obviously they wanted to take control and make money. There are some free and open source alternatives, but it's probably just the wrong platform. Like for this bleeding edge, well, not bleeding edge, but for this digitally native currency, we're used to permissionless development environments, and that's probably what we should also have for whatever game in which we implement Bitcoin payments. But yeah, I hope so. Hopefully they'll be able to, I don't know, spin up like a speakeasy server which people can use for Minecraft. And maybe that's not even possible, I don't know. Or maybe they can switch and offer a similar service for just a different game and pick something maybe a little bit more free and open source. Free and open source is obviously the way to go for everything, and we'll eventually win all these. But yeah, they just maybe picked the wrong platform.
Well, I agree, Ben. I think ID Software is the perfect example there. John Carmack was very serious about open sourcing all of ID Software, Quake, Wolf 3D, Doom, all of these games, and letting people create level editors and neat, unique, and new things you could do with the game. Sadly, Minecraft used to be the same way. I think it's very sad that Microsoft feels they have to do this, like you're saying, probably to protect the children. But once again, it feels like it's cutting Minecraft, which for all of its blockiness is actually a pretty innovative game. It's cutting them off from innovation. Dan, Eve, what do you think about no more Bitcoin in Minecraft?
Well, it's sad. Bitcoin is like the internet currency, right? And so pulling it out of a game that's so interweaved with the internet, and it's such a huge online game, it's just a bad thing. And we should be seeing more integration with Bitcoin, but because of the fact that people are trying to hold on to profits, Microsoft, as Ben said, trying to gain control. They want to be able to control what people can make money off of in their own platform. And rather making it more free and more open source, they're making it more closed, more directed by where they want the money to go, where they want the money to flow. I do think the point about sweatshops is a valid point. I remember reading like back in the day about even like, was it Second Life, where you could build up credits and people would be like farming these credits and then being able to sell them on, and there was someone whipping them in the background of make more credits, or like do more things. That's obviously pretty bad, but the idea about using Bitcoin as a payment source, a payment service, to be able to trade assets within the game, that's the whole it's the whole point of the internet, is being able to openly and freely transact information, and money is a kind of another source of information. So it's just sad that Microsoft have gone that way. Whereas like, GitHub, they bought over GitHub, right? And it seemed like they were going to be going a bit more crazy over the control of GitHub, but they haven't been too bad with that. So it's sad to see them do that with Minecraft, which was such a huge game. But that's Microsoft, right? And yeah, Bill is a shrill.
It does seem a lot like the early internet, where everything bad could be done with the early internet, but also everything good can be done with the early internet. So it's very hard for people to separate those two. Josh Shigala, you've been in Bitcoin a long time. This harkens back to when Apple was trying to block Bitcoin wallets from their phone. They wanted to protect their 30% App Store monopoly. What do you think about Microsoft blocking Bitcoin from Minecraft?
Well, all of these poor 8-year-olds buying drugs and weapons in Minecraft are going to have to buy drugs and weapons in the real world now. You know, it's a shocker. But actually, you know, the thing is, Microsoft is so heavily invested in AI. And the thing is that these agents, these AI agents, they cannot get bank accounts. What are they going to use to transact in? Well, they're going to use Bitcoin. They're going to use cryptocurrencies. So I think Bitcoin within Minecraft is really important, because when you work for something and you want to trade it, you're actually understanding that there's real value there as a kid, and if you remove that, and then you do this work and you've got this thing that's valuable, but it's not valuable anymore because the platforms removed that. I don't know. I think there's lessons there for kids to learn about how to trade, how to barter, how to haggle. I think it's unfortunate, yeah. But like Ben said, you can, Minecraft servers, as I know it, I'm not 100% versed in Minecraft, but I'm pretty sure it's something that you can run a server on, and maybe it's banned on like Minecraft.com or something, but I'm pretty sure you can run Minecraft servers and then stick it in there. I remember someone made a whole casino in Minecraft, a huge like slot machine that you could pull and all this sort of stuff. So maybe that Microsoft was pushed through one of these agencies that protect the gambling industry from any competition.
It could be
or regulators, I should say. I shouldn't say that.
Friendly regulators. But yes, moving on to the exit question. Minecraft memories. Do you have any unique memories about Minecraft or anything that you really like about the game? Let's go to Ben Ark first.
Not really Minecraft. I mean, I used to play it with my son, because I was like a young father when Minecraft came out, so I didn't really have any time on my hands. But yeah, we used to have a lot of fun on it. It's great how it sort of straddles the generations. Like people play it, not kids. Everyone play it. There's a whole bunch of people still playing it now, and it's been going for a couple of decades. But I have got a very fond memory of when I was at a Bitcoin conference, and I bumped into Chris Moss, who's one of the co-founders of Zebedee, who helped, like I said, build the architecture for this Minecraft server initiative. It's a really good company. It does lots of really good work when it comes to adding Bitcoin payments into computer games. And I mentioned something that we chatted about on the show. It was like the Saturday when I bumped into him, and we'd done the show on the Friday. And then Chris was like, "Oh yeah, I saw that on WCN." And I was like, "Oh, you watched the show?" And he's like, "Yeah, I watched the show." So Chris, if you're out there, hello. But it was like another example of like we don't have, sometimes when it comes to our views, we don't have like huge views, but the quality of some of the people we've got watching this show is amazing. So props to everybody who watches the show. It's a company decision when you build something great and it's a platform people want to engage with, and then they want to contribute back to it. They start building products, services, projects on top of it, on top of your product. And then you have this decision: do we go more closed or do we become more open? And the greatest and most successful companies, they encourage openness and they encourage development. Even like a company like Lego, as someone starts manufacturing like little guns for Lego figures, and they have like a no gun policy. And then they're like, wait, do we go and sue these people, or do we let the platform be open and anyone can develop and sell, little Lego things which interact with our little Lego guys? And then they're like, okay, we're going to keep it open. So that's one example. But again, like with Minecraft, like Josh was saying, if they went for more of an open, permissionless development environment, then all these people who love the system and they want to contribute back to it, they would build all these amazing and incredible experiences. So it's always the answer. If you have a big company and a very successful project, is to not put it in a walled garden, like make it nice and open and invite everybody in to develop.
Unfortunately, I think Microsoft's just following the Twitter and the Ethereum example, where you offer one thing, then change it in the end. Minecraft was very open and free. Twitter had an API. Ethereum was proof of stake, or it was proof of work, sorry. Then you spread it out there, get it installed on everyone's computer, and then you change your mind, make it proof of work, take away the Twitter API, and then make it so you can't play Bitcoin in Minecraft. It's a pretty obvious bait and switch now. Facebook, many of the other large internet companies seem to be going this way. Dan, Eve, do you have any Minecraft memories? Anything you enjoy about playing the game?
I've genuinely never played it, but like every now I did the other day, so I downloaded. So I like old strategy games like Red Alert, Command and Conquer, Transport Tycoon. There's Open TTD, Open Transport Tycoon is still going, and so I was having a little play on that the other day. Theme Hospital. I wish they did a theme park, right? That would be amazing. Or like the if they revamped free theme park. I've seen the iPad version or something, and like it will cost you £500 to be able to buy all the individual bits, right? That's really bad. And this is another example where they could go open source like Transport Tycoon did. They let them go. I think it's Chris Sawyer that did I think it was Chris Sawyer, Transport Tycoon. Anyway, it's all open source now, right? So you can create the game. And whereas obviously, like Theme Park was owned by EA or Bullfrog, and then it went to EA, and EA aren't obviously going to give the rights up. So it's one of these sad things. Like it's a 20-year-old, 30-year-old game. I want to go back and just like have a little play, right? But you've got to buy it, the original off of EA Games. They haven't revamped it at all. You've still got to buy it for £10, which was probably the same worth value now than back then it was worth in terms of inflation. So it's really sad. But I've had lots of friends that play Minecraft, and they absolutely love it. I haven't got into it yet, but it sounds like a fun game. But it just seems like another overreach of control, right? Take everyone's fun and just shrink it down so that you can't do all these individual things that you can do. And then there it is. Didn't Apple as well? But they're going back on Microsoft. They tried to sell Apple Bing at one point, but probably didn't buy it just because of the name, because the name's really crap, right? Bing, as
I don't know if they ever tried to sell Apple Bing. That would be interesting.
Yeah,
I can't believe I'm with the only 4 people on the internet who don't play Minecraft. I've been playing Minecraft since the beta. I like all the simplicity parts of it. Like if you dig straight down too much, you get stuck forever and that's it. Your game's over. I like the way that you can build things during the daytime. Then at night, the creepers and other things will attack you. And just the basic simplicity, the way you build a shovel out of 2 sticks and a piece of wood, or 2 sticks and a stone, it becomes a stone shovel. Just the way that things can be built with other parts of the game. It also reminds me of a level editor for Quake or Doom, something that I would play anyway, and there wouldn't be a game there. So to put the game inside of the level editor was a true genius of Minecraft. Josh Agala, do you have any Minecraft memories? We still got a chance here. Has anybody actually played this game?
No, I never played it. I'm too old for it. But we had ours. We had our games that I can't. I was just never really. I played Street Fighter. I don't know. But yeah, someone in the chat said Bit47. Payment codes are a really interesting way that you could circumvent this, because you can put a message in there, and you could definitely circumvent with some of these interesting ways. You don't need Bitcoin within Minecraft. You don't need Minecraft to recognize Bitcoin.
What's Bit40?
That's for sure.
What's Bit40? How's Bit47 work? What's this? How does it work?
So basically, it defines a technique for payment codes, and you can basically put a message into, as far as I understand it, you can put a message into kind of like a reference code into Bitcoin. So correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but
yeah, that's cool. So you could like almost pay to play, and then put the reference, and then you could have something looking for the reference code in the mempool.
Yeah.
And then do a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
So just like in banking, when it says reference, and then you put a little thing in there so the company knows the money's come from you.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, and originally there was another server that did have Bitcoin Minecraft before this. They even had a fun thing where you could take the Bitcoin, which were, I think, diamonds or emeralds, one of the really fancy items in Minecraft. Then you could throw them in the lava and see what would happen. Does it
I think
destroy the Bitcoin? I don't know.
that was another one of our viewers, Jay Deluxe, built that Minecraft server.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That was a
so
classic Minecraft server, and I actually played on there. You could play on it; it was super fun, and somehow you get some satoshis. So it's too bad you can't do that at Microsoft anymore. They're the no fun crew these days. Moving on to issue 4, Coinbase holds $25 billion in Bitcoin. That's 5% of the total supply. It's time for everyone to freak out because Coinbase now has perhaps a near monopoly on Bitcoin, holding 5% of the supply. I actually am going to go devil's advocate here and say it's not actually that bad a thing. But Dan, Eve, tell us how bad it is that Coinbase owns 5% of all Bitcoins.
I don't think so. On the erring on the side of disaster, I don't think it's that bad, because if they lose the private keys, then 5%'s like gone, and everyone's like, well, so no one owns 5%.
See, I'm down on the other side where I say at least this 5% can't be lost. Us idiots with our keys and our stupid computers are going to lose the rest of the Bitcoin. At least we could say there's 5% that's safe on Coinbase that you guys could use to trade.
How safe though is that? I wonder if they're using like Shamir secrets, or they've got like 2 letters of the private key split up into 120 different bank accounts, and it'd be really, I'd be really intrigued to hear their like security system, how developed it is. But it must be pretty hardcore. I read once that they have like tents. They have, in order to do certain transactions, they have electromagnetic like fields around certain tents where they can't be penetrated, and they can only sign a transaction within this specific tent. So if you're someone that's like, a grandparent who's like, oh, I want to have Bitcoin, but I don't want to hold my own private key because I can't even remember what I had for supper last night, let alone to remember where I put my private seed. Then it's good for those people. But for someone else, we like to hold our own private keys. It's like holding your own destiny, right? Becoming the master of your own universe, or whatever He-Man is, or She-Man, or whatever it is in 2023. But mastering of their universe, I don't know. But the fact is that you can give other people your private keys, but if they're gone, they're gone, and you've got that regret that you gave it to someone else. Whereas if you hold it yourself, you are the master of your own destiny. You just got to be happy and be confident in the way you're storing your private key, because when you lose it, you lose it. So if you're giving it to another company, you're offsetting handing off that risk that company is managing that process correctly, whether it's from the the signing process to whether it's actually storing the seed, so that if something happened, if there's an office party where 50 of them suddenly die, and that's like 75% of the private keys, and there's only a few people left. That's what happens when you hand off the risk to someone else. But I think it's kind of a good thing, actually, that they're actually holding it, because it means if something does happen and the supply's gone, now number one, it's going to be off the market, or it will be dumped. But there's no way you can just sell $25 billion of Bitcoin in one particular exchange. There's going to be a lot of money to have to get rid of. And you've seen how hard it was for, say, the guys that stole from Bitfinex, the rapper and her boyfriend, how they stole the money and how difficult it was for them to actually sell it. And the other guy who also stole from Silk Road, right, and got caught with the Bitcoin stored in some sort of safety deposit box under his floorboards. It's really hard to get rid of that.
Dan, all you have to do is sell $25 billion worth of PS5s. So it's not that. It's not that hard.
That's more than like all the PS5s so far. Just wait for the PS6.
Yeah. I like how the PS5 is the unit of account. How many PS5s is that worth? Oh, Ben's dog. Hey, doggy. But Josh Shigala, what do you think? Coinbase holds all these Bitcoins. Naturally, I don't worry about it. I remember when they bought, I forget the name, but it was Wences Cesaris's company, and they had a whole vault system, like a physical underground Swiss vault with guards and Faraday cages. And I imagine that's where the Bitcoin is. It's all safe and secure. Surely, Josh Agal, you can trust Coinbase.
Well, it's the other 95%, which is held by like 7 shady Russians in a hot tub. Like, so it's really, it's really important to think about the 95% that's out there in this case. But actually, most of the Bitcoin's been lost. So I think what, like 20% now. It's just an insane amount because people just can't get their shit together to store their Bitcoin well enough. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think for those hardcore Bitcoiners who are obsessed with self-custody, and I agree, it's really important that we are obsessed with self-custody. I think there's always going to be a case for the Coinbase, because to get mainstream adoption, some people just want the old school banking type of UX, and that's what Coinbase does. And they've done it pretty well up until now. They've, of course, security wise, in terms of IRS and all of this thing, hasn't been the best. But in terms of holding the actual Bitcoin, they've done a pretty stellar job. Haven't been hacked. That's a very there's something you cannot say for most exchanges. I'm proud to say that Voltora is also one of these exchanges that hasn't been hacked in the whole time that it's been around, since 2015. So it's good on them for holding for that long. Saying that, if you have a substantial amount on Coinbase, I would definitely recommend at least diversifying onto some sort of hardware wallet, and self-custody is always a winner, because that thing cannot be hacked. Although I have read stories where someone's used a paper wallet, followed all of the protocols, bought a laptop that's fresh, disconnected from the internet, downloaded the software to generate a seed, not even a seed, to generate an address. And then it was gone. It was gone because the address generator, the randomness, had a hack, and he went to a dodgy site. So it's a difficult thing. It's not easy to be absolutely secure. And well, Coinbase has professionals, but so did LastPass. LastPass had professionals. They have professionals that are obsessed with security, yet they got hacked. And so it's difficult, right? It's one of these fine lines. Again, where do you go? Do you go super easy to use and get hacked, or potentially lose security there, or do you go too secure and screw it up?
Well, and it's really sad, Josh, for someone to have all the skills and the knowledge to get an air-gapped laptop and to maybe use Tails Linux and all these various important steps, but then to have a lack of trust in one of the tools at the beginning, the JavaScript wallet generator. And so, Ben, Josh actually has me thinking now maybe more than 5% should be in Coinbase. Maybe we'd be safer with 10 or 20 or 30% of all Bitcoin in this wonderful, trustworthy company. Ben Ark, what do you think about Coinbase holding so much Bitcoin?
I mean, I think for most people, a good hardware wallet like Trezor's the best, and that was the best advice anyone gave me, was just use Trezor. And I think it's the best hardware wallet there has been. And their entropy is good. It uses RNG, has hardware RNG as well. It hasn't got a secure element, but just make sure you haven't got like a corrupt maid. And I would assume that Coinbase probably has been hacked. Like, they've still got 25 billion worth of Bitcoin on their books. So I mean, like, it's going to be enough for any daily bank run on Coinbase. But I think we can assume that like HSBC has been hacked, and like Deutsche Bank has been hacked. And they're closed systems where we don't know if they've been hacked or not. And Coinbase is also a closed system, but it is a Bitcoin exchange. So it gets attacked a lot. I mean, like I've said before, like we have our LMBits demo server. I mean, I'm sure and that's constantly being attacked from all these random IP addresses, because it's got it's got the good stuff in it. It's got the Bitcoin, which if you get hold of, then you can, obfuscate and secure in a way where it's not traceable. And I'm sure Josh has experienced this with Vaultoro, that he gets a lot of traffic, which is people just trying to find vulnerabilities in the system. So it's amazing when you get exchanges, which, I think I trust Vaultoro hasn't been hacked. I'm not sure I trust Coinbase hasn't been hacked, to be fair. But it is good that they're building these security protocols, which maybe the SEC, if there is an ETF, they'll say, well, they'll use someone like Coinbase as an example and say, okay, what's the security protocol? I would like to see more of these exchanges releasing information on how they secure their Bitcoin. I guess that that also creates a vulnerability in itself, that like you're giving the blueprint to the hackers. But I would like for more of that stuff to be shared. But if you have enough like cold storage wallets, and then you have enough, hot wallets, which are paying back to the cold storage wallets, and that transport layer is secure, then I was speaking to a couple of Kraken people about this recently on their security stuff, and it was pretty cool. I like the thing they built to secure the Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I suppose if they lose the keys, then everyone's richer, so that's good. And then if a hacker steals the money, then they're not going to dump on the market, because that'll decrease the value of the thing which they've stolen. So they'll probably sell it for a while. We would hope, unless it's some government or something who want to crash Bitcoin. But even then, it's such a large amount of money that they would probably sell it off slow. I don't know, but sell off slowly. So it's not something I would worry about that Coinbase have 5%. Like you say, it is probably, they're pretty good at securing Bitcoin by now, even though they probably have at some point had some Bitcoin hacked. But yeah, for everyone out there, like the easiest way of securing Bitcoin is use a Trezor, and don't mind trying. It's like what Josh said before about on that spectrum of security, you go too far the other way, and you create vulnerabilities just by having an overly complex system. Before with the Magic 8 Ball, I was thinking we should probably have RNG hardware 8 Ball. I was thinking we should.
We need a verified 8 ball. We need a better random 8 ball that's securely random.
Truly random. And there's actually I won't go into it, but there's have you ever heard of Randonaughty? It's amazing. There's a Telegram group. It's one of my favorite Telegram groups. The shit they talk about basically is people using RNG randomness to get GPS coordinates, and then they go to the random GPS coordinate. And these people are very eccentric, and they think that they're breaking out of the simulation by using RNG. It's so fun. But anyway, the Magic 8 Ball, I think that we could sell that as a product to the Randonaut people, because they really dig the entropy. But anyway, that's a side note.
I think they would like a more random one. There have been some interesting hacks here in Las Vegas recently, Ben. The Caesars Corporation was allegedly hacked, but we don't know because they also allegedly paid the hackers. There's a new law in the United States where they have to put that on the books eventually, so we will know if Caesars paid them. MGM did not pay and had their system shut down, had trouble with checking in guests, couldn't run their slot machines, had trouble with their parking systems, all kinds of problems. So at the current time, it does look like it's worth it to pay the hackers, and then the hackers, it's worth it for them to give you your data back so that people will pay in the future. So it's a lot of game theory right there.
A little side note. So once we did get, a couple of years ago, we had a nasty vulnerability in LMBits, and on our demo server, we had a significant amount of money stolen. And then I was like, oh man, and I got in contact with the, so it was on, they messaged me to say, oh, there's this vulnerability. It was a random Telegram account which had been generated by just an anon thing. And then I spoke to the person. I was like, oh man, you sold so much money and it's really sad. Can I have some of it back? And he was like, yeah, I'll give you pretty much all of it back. He gave me 9/10 of the money back, and then he kept 1/10 as a bounty. And then also told us how to patch the hole. Never heard from him again. It's a complete non-Telegram account, and it just gave me faith in humanity, faith in Bitcoiners. I think it's a free and open source project, so they want to contribute back, but it was just cool. This person could have just kept all the money and just told us the vulnerability, and that would have been good enough, but they didn't. They gave back. So if that person's watching, thank you very much.
That's good. They see the value in the project, so they don't want to kill it. They just want to make it better. That's what's good about it. They're going on the entropy thing. Was it? I read recently about lava lamps, right? So some guys generating private seeds from lava lamps. Maybe old school, yeah. So like,
Yeah, lava lamps are one of the true generators of randomness. There's
yeah,
a lot of cryptographic projects where they use that to create the seed, like a wall full
yeah,
of lava lamps to generate this randomness.
you need it
Well,
That's mad.
I think we're running out of our own randomness here. It's time to go to predictions or story of the week. Dan, Eve, you can start us off with a prediction or a story of the week, probably about lava lamps.
Oh no, I'm gonna go for some really sad story. Right, so get your violins out. This is really bad. So I was driving along. I'm gonna try and keep it short because it's very sad, and don't be upset because I was. But I found I was driving along, and there was a little pigeon, a little fledgling, and it in the middle of the road. And I stopped the traffic because there was even people that looked like they were trying to run the thing over. I mean, Jesus Christ! So I like ran off the road, picked up this little pigeon, took him back, called him Barry, because the Barry V2, because there was Barry V1, which is a racing pigeon that like hurt itself at my parents' house, and he kept on coming back for years later. Anyway, so Barry V2 I was looking after him, and he was doing really good. Spent a couple of days with us, and I was feeding him stuff, and he was just mishing around. He escaped from the garage, which is good because they stay in a cold, dark place while they get better. He escaped from the garage. He was just mishing around the garden. The dogs like loved him, and the kids loved him. They're like, "Oh, Barry." And one of the kids, the other one was just like "Goo goo gaga," and then oh god, it's a bit graphic, but I was really growing attached to Barry, and I came back from dropping my son off picking my son up from school, and there's a fucking magpie literally packing its eyes out in the lawn. Barry's dead. Like, I was really upset. This is why I needed my friends from WCN to come back. I bet you thought I had a dead relative or something, but Barry was a relative, very close one, very quick. So no, I'm glad you came back to give me some support because Barry's like, I don't know what to do with him. But Hudson saw it and I was like, covered his eyes. I was like, don't look over there. And he was like, but Barry. And I was like, no, Barry's fine. And he was like, what about the blood? And I was like, forget about the blood. He's just happy. He's just eating a gooseberry or a raspberry or something.
Oh God.
So the moral of the story, there's no moral, just poor Barry.
Don't help birds. That's the moral. Oh shit!
Awful,
No, I'm really
awful story, Dan. We all feel terrible. I'm reminded of what Jack Handy once said. If a child asks you why it is raining, I think a cute thing to tell him is God is crying. If he asks you why God is crying, I think another cute thing to tell him is probably because of something you did. All right, Josh Segal, another story of the week, hopefully not involving the animal.
Yeah, or
kingdom.
if the ice cream truck's playing music, it means they've run out of ice cream.
Yes, get best.
Shocker. Story of the week. We are the Standard is officially one of the fastest growing projects on Arbitrum now, which is the layer 2 on Ethereum, and so I'm really, really proud of everybody and the team and working on this. And again, it's fully free and open source, and I'm just super stoked. So it's been a long road, and but it's getting there. Yeah.
Well, awesome, Josh. Congratulations to Josh and the team at the Standard for getting it launched and getting it out there. And that's great that people are using it. You're getting some traction on it.
Yeah. Oh, and I've got another story of the week, just quickly. So LastPass, like I mentioned a year ago, got hacked, right? And for those that don't know, LastPass, it's one password and it stores all your passwords and creates nice fat ones. But the hackers, it was a really sophisticated hack. I won't go into it, but they really spearphished them, and they got these blobs of data, 330 million accounts, like a lot. And each account has hundreds of passwords and notes and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, they're all encrypted, these blobs. So the LastPass was like, don't worry about it. If your password's strong, they can't get in. But now someone at MetaMask has started to realize that some large OG accounts are starting to get hacked. And the common denominator between all of them is that they had their seed in LastPass. And so their thinking, which is probably right, is that these hackers are finding email, because the only thing that wasn't encrypted in these blobs were the emails attached to the blobs. So the hackers know which blob belongs to who. And so they're just going through like old Mt. Gox or whatever, just finding OGs in the space with their emails, and then brute forcing these things. So I had a wallet in there that was a test wallet where the seed was in LastPass, and I started to think, shit, after over time, test wallets become real wallets because money in there becomes worth more and more, and you're like, I better. Anyway, I went to some other places where I'd borrowed, like locked up collateral and borrowed against it and stuff like that within the Ethereum space, and on competitor sites. And it was really difficult. I had to pay off the debt at a loss because Ethereum had dropped in price since I took out the debt. And that sucked. And then I had to pay for transaction to get the collateral out. And then I had to move the collateral to an uncompromised seed. And then I had to if I wanted to take the loan out, send it again, take the loan out. A nightmare. Whereas with the standard, because we issue dynamic NFTs that pull data from the blockchain and display what's in this debt. I went on the standard, I had like 25 or 20 different seeds, different vaults, and I just selected all of the NFTs and sent them in one transaction to a new uncompromised seed. And they all just disappeared from the old one and reappeared in the new one. So the debt and collateral all moved without me having to pay off debt, without me losing money, without anything. All of the smart vaults just moved to a new seed. And it was such a glorious thing. It was a use case that I hadn't designed for. It was like, I just wanted this ability to sell debt or transfer debt and collateral, and yeah, so this use case was a real sort of a great story of, hey, you build something cool, and then use cases start appearing for why this should happen. So yeah, a really, really interesting use case, and yeah, that's the story.
Well, I just can't believe people are still storing their seeds inside of 1Password or LastPass or any of these systems. I remember a long time ago, someone thought they were really clever and started storing their seeds in Evernote. And of course, their Evernote got hacked, and they went through and they scanned for seeds, and they found them right away. It was no problem at all. And it's this idea where the seed is like the padlock for your thing, and then your password is your key, and you're storing your padlock and your key in the same place. It's just so obviously dangerous, and I hope that no one listening has stored their seeds. It's one thing to store a password in a password manager, but if you put both halves of the key, essentially both of them in there, it could be a real disaster. And it's sad to see those OGs lose their money that way. Ben Ark, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Prediction. So story of the week is, well, you got next week I'll be at Bitcoin Plus in Berlin, and that's an exciting conference because that's all on Nix and having using Nix Bitcoin. Finally, people are starting to pay attention to Nix Bitcoin. It's probably the most important Bitcoin project, I think, because you have you can build a reproducible Bitcoin node when you're installing software and hardware. Depending on the hardware you're installing on, the software acts differently, and that sucks. So Nix gets around that. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that. That's in Berlin next weekend. Hopefully I can do the show live from there. Really psyched to hear that the standard.io is has launched, and that people are recognizing it for how incredibly useful it is. Just Josh is a very hardworking guy, and he's been working on this thing for years. I mean, it feels like years. It must be years. Yeah, and it's that's a testament to you rolling it out polished and ready for production, whereas a lot of people maybe rolled out a little bit earlier. And it's a testament to your just your diligence and all that stuff.
Hey,
so,
thanks, Ben.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. Maybe I shouldn't have polished it so long though.
No, but it's I mean, like it's your like you're reacting in the way which you're responsible for other people's money, and like it's exactly what the way in which you should behave in this ecosystem. And it's hugely beneficial. I remember I read a Reddit post, and somebody was really struggling because they were buying this house and they had to let go of like 90% of the Bitcoin holdings or something, or 8% of the Bitcoin holdings to buy this house. And then, but it was like this or that. It was like, okay, I got to buy the house or I keep the Bitcoin. Which do I do? I'll have a better life if I buy the house. And whereas you offer them this third option, which is like, you don't have to just sell the Bitcoin to buy the house. There's other things you can do. So that I think as a third option, it's such a great thing to offer people.
And especially with capital gains tax when you sell, because it's not only 95%. Now, if he goes and buys that house, or they, it would then they'd buy the house 95%, and then they don't have enough to cover capital gains tax, so they might have to sell the house or take out a lien against it to pay for the taxes. Like, this is a nightmare. Why not borrow against it? And instead of using a centralized service like BlockFi, this is the problem. I just, to conquer 332, I would have built on Bitcoin, but it just hasn't got the op returns that I need to build this thing. So, but what would you rather? Something that's slightly less centralized, like Ethereum, slightly less decentralized, like Ethereum, because that's a scale, or you want to use with pure Bitcoin and then only use Bitcoin exchanges that are fully centralized, totally corruptible, nonsense, BlockFi, Celsius, all these sorts of things that are centralized. We have to trust, because I really feel like us Bitcoiners, we have to go, okay, there's technology and there's a scale of decentralization. And while there are many, many scams in the Ethereum space, there's many, many scams in Bitcoin too. And there's many, many scams in centralized authorities. Like,
the Ethereum space has got so. This is why I sided on the on the drive chain debate, while I was siding with Paul Stoss. It's because I want to see that innovation on Bitcoin. I want to see people being able to build those sorts of things on Bitcoin. Because then, with Ethereum, there's this worry that you're building castles on sand. But I think now Ethereum's got to the point where it's kind of proved itself to be. Yeah, I mean, it's like I wouldn't personally worry about using the standard IO on Ethereum. I would prefer for it to be on Bitcoin, but like I say, we're just not there yet, and hopefully we'll get there. But it is quite depressing, the whole drive chain fiasco.
Well, maybe now that layer 2s are starting to become more variant in Bitcoin, maybe someone will build a layer 2 on Bitcoin in a new way, where you are truly using Bitcoin, but you can have a larger surface to actually create.
Well, I mean, so on drive chains, like they've released the entire, like Ethereum, like the most up-to-date version of Ethereum as a drive chain, as one of the drive chains, and that uses Bitcoin. So you just replace Ethereum for Bitcoin more or less natively. I mean, obviously I won't get into that drive chain debate, but it really would be nice if we had like a development environment which like welcomes all this incredible, interesting like DeFi projects like Standard IO. But whatever, like Ethereum works well for now, but it would be cool to eventually get on Bitcoin. But
it would be cool. And some people say, "Oh, why don't you just use RSK or Stacks?" But then you are using another chain. It's not Bitcoin. It's RSK, anchoring to Bitcoin every so often.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Well, you could have all that thing, and you could have that development environment, but then it wouldn't be Bitcoin. There's something about Bitcoin where people like to protect it at a higher level. They wouldn't let Vitalik build Ethereum on top of Bitcoin. And ever since then, the die has been cast. People want their Bitcoin to be more secure.
The whole point of drive chains is that you would have the issue is that you may skew a minor incentive, right? But the whole point of drive chains is that normal Bitcoin is using Bitcoin however they want to use it, like just continues. But you could then have these side chains which were blind merge mined, which you could then do like Monero, Ethereum. You could just do all the functionality which people clearly want in the world. You could then do them on Bitcoin, and then have it like looping in and out, but whatever. And we'll get there eventually. There'll be some sort of, maybe it's not drive chains, maybe it's some other thing. We'll get there eventually where like these amazing projects like the Standard.io can find a home on Bitcoin.
So Ben,
Yeah, and I think, sorry.
I was just going to say, from a technical perspective, then, does the implementation of drive chains, does it hinder Bitcoin security? What's the impact?
Not at all. I actually think it makes Bitcoin security better because miners get paid for merge mining, blind merge mining these other chains, which means that I mean, there's no example of a blockchain being secured by fees only. And if you get rid of the mining reward, like we're assuming that fees only will pay for the miners to keep Bitcoin secure, but basically there's more money available to miners. There's more miners who are going to come on board to mine Bitcoin and secure Bitcoin. The fear is that it skewers mining incentives because they could act in a way which is favorable to a drive chain, which isn't favorable to on-chain. But I think that it's very unlikely, and a lot of those concerns are based on the fact that Bitcoin mining isn't decentralized enough. So we need a lot more work on, particularly with the pools, by people being able to easily, exactly, switch hash power, and make it really easy for that to happen. So if they're not happy, if a miner becomes like, if they become corrupt and if they try and take, because basically like with Bitcoin, you have to 51% attack, whereas with the drive chain, it's like you can 25% attack the drive chain. So it's really important that mining is more decentralized, but I think that's like a Bitcoin issue really. But I actually think the concept of powering all these side chains using the same mining security model is a sound concept. It's just those sorts of creases will get ironed out. Yeah, it's cool, and it's cool. It's great that the Standard.io is fantastic, and I'm just kind of jealous. I kind of want that shit on. I want it on Bitcoin natively, and as does Josh.
So do I. I really want it on Bitcoin. Yeah, I really do. And you know, thinking about a lot about it, I thought a lot about how to deploy on Bitcoin, and it was just impossible. And so the thing is that even if Bitcoin did implement this, the problem is it's doing it so late. The problem is that a lot of Bitcoin maximalists, they don't want Bitcoin to change, and that's fair enough. I get it, because Bitcoin does what it does, and you don't want to broaden that attack surface. Bitcoin does what it does, and it's great. So drive chains is a great opportunity, absolutely, and we can do it on there. The problem with that then is liquidity. Liquidity is really, really tricky, because the liquidity and network effect is really what drives the ability to have an ecosystem. So what would drive, why would someone use a Bitcoin DeFi over Ethereum DeFi is when Ethereum, or if Ethereum got compromised at its core. Then they would realize, wow, mining proof of work is better. I'm going to go over there and use it over there, because we've seen now the proof of stake doesn't work. So really it's a proof of stake versus proof of work thing now. And in one way, obviously, I hope it never happens, because if Ethereum gets hacked, the trust globally in crypto as a whole, including Bitcoin, will be brought down a notch or 5. So
it would just be a little bit.
Happen, but
if you had like a drive chain thing where you had Ethereum as a drive chain, there'll be a little less friction. You could probably just transpose everything you've done in the Standard.io onto that if we ever got that thing in, and then for me, like I could get a collateralized loan on the Standard.io just using my Bitcoin, and I wouldn't have to do any like swapping out to Ethereum or anything. It would just be much more seamless.
Yeah, you can.
But then also, so like with the Bitcoin, with the maxi stance, it's very kind of like the binary, good and bad. Bitcoin's perfect. We shouldn't change. Inaction is action. Like if you don't change Bitcoin, it's going to change because of the way in which coins get minted and put into the system to secure the system. So by doing nothing, like Bitcoin will change. and its security model will change, and everything else will change around it. Like, not doing anything doesn't mean that the system's going to remain the same as it is now. Like, it's always going to change until we get rid of the mining incentive, and we just base our whole system on fees, which there's no. So it's like, yeah. So this
and
idea
you can use
just,
Bitcoin. You can use Bitcoin on.
I mean,
it's just wrapped Bitcoin. That's all.
The other thing is, well, like scale. Like, you know, like if we're scaling, like Bitcoin scales to us and a bunch of ordinal dickheads who are like spamming the chain, right? Okay. And then it's like, well, what if the whole world tries to use Bitcoin? So like, Bitcoin will change if you do nothing, and it will get worse, and its features will whatever. Like, it's not like we can just, Bitcoin will stay exactly the same as it is now just by doing nothing. It's not true. So it makes sense to develop and build for the world of people using Bitcoin.
You know, the theory that Bitcoin should change, it shouldn't probably change. You know, it is really good at what it does. It probably shouldn't change.
It's really good at what it does for like the few people who are using it, like us lot, you know, like an on-chain I can pay, you know, whatever, maximum like a couple of quid, and I can get an on-chain transaction in.
Yeah.
But then if the whole world's using Bitcoin, it changes. If the whole financial infrastructure of the planet is based on Bitcoin, which I personally want it to be, then it changes. So it makes sense to scale to meet that.
It needs to adapt, right?
Sure.
To meet the needs.
Well, what I would love to see is, so RGB was working on a layer 2 for using, I think it was using Lightning to build smart contracts within Bitcoin. And I would really love to see how that evolved. I haven't kept up with the project for a while, but
I think actually RGB on Lightning, it actually relied upon something getting forked into on-chain in order for it to work, which I think was an error. There was an assumption that it would get forked in. So I think that,
and it soft forked.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, okay, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
I think we do have some conferences coming up, Josh. You might learn more about this at HCPP. Isn't that this weekend? I think the 10th and the 4th of October 4th and 5th.
Callie from LM Bits is in HCCP, and he's doing a talk on Cashew. So if you're in Prague, go check it out.
And then Ben, where were you going this weekend? He said Bitcoin
plus in Berlin. That's the next Bitcoin thing. It's very important. And then the week after that, there's Bitcoin Amsterdam. That's it's less technical. We will LM Bits and Maker Bits, the communities. We will be running the workshop area for that. So over the 3 days, so come and hang out with us. That'll be a lot of fun.
Very cool. And I know they just had the Honey Badger Bitcoin convention, the Baltic Honey Badger, up in Latvia. So there's been a lot of chances, at least in Europe, to go to some Bitcoin conferences and maybe talk to some people about what's going on and this new stuff and what everybody's working on. But right now we're running out of time, so still a chance for you to give us a like down below or to put your comment in or say hello in the chat. Until next time, bye-bye.